Good morning, welcome back to Apples to Zucchinis. It's still snowing outside, winter's still happening, and I haven't seen the garden since October. So I'm still gardening inside. Now I've moved everything upstairs. I've got a full spread on 2 tables here, and a lot is happening. We've got a lot of stuff going on getting ready for the garden outside, and I'll show you what seeds we plan to start. We're going to be starting them in a grow tray. It's been a long time since I've used a grow tray. The last time was when I first started experimenting with, and probably the last time I ever tried an indoor grow area with a grow light. It was a homemade project with a homemade LED grow light. It didn't do too bad. It wasn't that powerful, but it was more just playing around with how LED lights work, the balance between red and blue. And it's more just a fun little project. So I'll go ahead now and review some of the projects, and then I'll go on to some of the new projects. So this is the first persimmon seed that came out, and I had transplanted. Unfortunately, the seed pod was stuck on the top, and I was kind of waiting for the seed to push its way out, but it just never happened and it looked like it was stuck. So I try to do what I don't like to do, that is pry off the seed pod. And looking into the seed, you could see that the leaves themselves were already starting to rot. I've got 5 more coming, so I'll leave those and let them grow in the starter pots a little bit longer before I transplant them. Fortunately, one of them is already broken through and has broken out of its seed pod. And here it is. So this is the second one to come up. And as you can see, the seed pod's completely left in the soil, and the leaves are exposed, so this one's growing nice and strong. And we got 4 more on the way, and we'll see how those do. So again, having more than we need, when one of them doesn't quite work out, we've got a few more to fall back on. So we'll watch these and see how they go, and see which one turns out to be the keeper. Now of the 24, or I don't know how many honeydews I had growing, I had to transplant them a little bit early because they were just so tightly packed I wouldn't be able to separate the roots had they grown much more. And I anticipated I'd lose some, and this is one of them. So this label comes off, and this plant comes out. And that's going to go for compost. And we'll reuse this pot to start something new. Okay, this is the jalapeno pot, and the jalapenos never came up. So I dug up the soil, nothing even sprouted. So the label's coming off, and I reused this pot to plant the cabbage. Now it's doing really good. It had roots on it that were about 4 to 5 inches long. So I let them drop down a bit into the soil, buried it, gave a good watering, and we'll see how it does. Looks like these flower buds are almost ready to sprout. So this is pretty much what we've seen before with the cabbage plant. Started off about that size, and it's really grown beyond the pot. And this is the flower head that it's grown, one of the 2. The other one hasn't quite gotten as far as for development, but I would anticipate these to start opening up in the next few days. This is the second head. As we can see, we don't really have much going on here. So I'll keep an eye on here to see what it grows in the future. There are a couple more branches or stalks growing here, and I'm not sure how well they're going to do. They're much farther behind than the other 2. These are cherry tomato plants, and they are screaming for a new pot. Well, not quite root bound, as I don't see that many roots at the bottom. I only see a few. They are well due for their own pots, and I'd like to get them separated before they do get too root bound. The other thing with having a larger pot is there will be a lot more water or moisture in the soil for the plants to have access to, and tomatoes really need their water. So we'll go ahead and transplant this celery into a bigger pot. Got my pot ready here, and I'm going to go ahead and take out the celery. And just squeeze around the pot gently. Try to loosen up from the pot, and I think the roots have gripped on a little bit, so let's just give a slight tug. There we go, look at that. Well, that's definitely root bound, so I think this plant is definitely going to appreciate the larger pot. So we'll go ahead and throw that in there. I'm looking at how much roots I have there, and I'm just thinking that this pot might not be big enough for this. So I'm going to grab myself an even bigger pot. I've got a much larger pot now. Let's check out this plant. It gives me lots of room there. So the bottom of the roots are going to be about here. I've got lots of room for them to go down and to grow out and fill up this pot. So I'm going to top this up. As I'm adding the soil in, I just tuck it down around the sides to make sure I keep the plant centered. It's not tipping over, keeping it level. And I push the soil down a little bit. It's not a bad thing to push the soil down, as long as you're not pushing it too much on the roots themselves. But you do want to pack it down a little bit. The water is going to pack it in anyhow. If you're planting outside and you have really poor soil that compacts really tightly like a clay, then it will make it tough on the roots. And if you do have a lot of clay in your soil, you want to mix in some sand, or you can even try coir, which is made from the husk of coconuts, or something to assist in giving some drainage. This is my ongoing cutting tray, and for the most part things are going really slow. Now about a month ago I did take a peek and slowly took them out very carefully, and did notice that they were growing roots. This may be in large part due to the cold weather we've had. So hopefully with the warmer temperatures in the house things will do better. And I'm already starting to notice that this jasmine cutting has grown a new branch here. So as I was putting this tray away, I noticed that one of the cuttings from the grapevine has some buds coming out. And once it starts to grow some leaves, I can go ahead and transplant this and put it in some sunlight and let it take off. Okay, so these tomato plants have done quite well. This is a beefsteak, and this is one of our black tomatoes. We take a look at these flowers. We got a large one right here, and then we got a bunch of small ones. Now these small ones do not grow to become a large one. What we have here is we have two different types of flowers growing. I'm going to show you this on another plant. On this one we can see we have this large flower, and we have this much smaller flower. Now the large flower, I've only seen this on beefsteak tomato plants, whereas the smaller flower is more typical with these black tomatoes. So what may have happened last year is we had some cross-pollination between the beefsteak tomatoes and the black tomatoes. Generally, when you grow from seeds from a plant that was previously cross-pollinated between two different plants, the fruit it produces will match the plant it came from. But when you grow those seeds to a new plant, it's the new plant that will grow fruit that's based on the two parent plants. So I could be expecting, or I would have expected, a cross between a black tomato and a beefsteak tomato. But what's got me puzzled is the fact I'm getting two different types of flowers on the same plant. This is our avocado tree, and it's about 4 feet tall from the soil. As we move up here, we can see we've got some oranging on the edges of the leaves. Another gardener had noted that they had the same problem as well during a cold snap, where the house temperature dropped notably below 20 degrees Celsius. As well, our house temperature did get a bit below 20, probably down to 15 degrees Celsius by the window, and this is when we started seeing this oranging effect. Now that we've had some recent warmer temperatures, we can see that the top leaves are doing quite well. So the three types of seeds I plan starting today is the kohlrabi, which I just first tried last night. It's the first time I ever tried this vegetable, and it has a very interesting taste. And the most interesting part is actually the aftertaste, which kind of leaves a freshness in your mouth, kind of like a mint, but without that mint taste. The second one being our regular long English cucumber. And then the third, yellow zucchini. With the cucumber and the zucchini, the intent is to grow these in the ground and to trellis the plants, so we can actually grow the cucumber and zucchini off trellises, so we're not using too much of our ground space. Of course, our gardens are a bit on the small side, so we like to save as much space as we can for other plants.